Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of Enrichment, where we talk to small business owners and entrepreneurs on strategies and best practices. Although small businesses are often at a disadvantage when competing with the bigger companies, we can have one advantage. We can always be smarter than they are. So let's get to it. This week, our subject is in and out of the box thinking. Henry Ford was, by any definition, a wildly successful man, celebrated for such out-of-the-box ideas as the modern assembly line, interchangeable parts, and high wages. Interestingly, even though it was back around 1900, Henry Ford did his part for civil rights. He promoted equal opportunity employment from the very beginning of the Ford Motor Company in 1903. Ford believed that, quote, skill and talent should be utilized without reference to race or color. And thus, he hired minorities and trained them for jobs that required skilled labor, working side by side with white workers. Ford was a true out-of-the-box thinker. One of his most significant contributions to out-of-the-box thinking was the assembly line and the concept of interchangeable parts. Once these practices were introduced and refined, they became the new boxes, invaluable boxes that allowed the American auto industry to flourish. Working inside these boxes enabled Detroit to mass produce the automobile and spread the message of American power and influence around the globe. But these boxes also became a trap. The boxes invented by Henry Ford and adopted by Detroit eventually constrained their thinking. These boxes didn't allow for imaginative and unconventional ideas. Their perspective, like that of the sled dogs in the back, never changed. We need to use the boxes as they were intended, but avoid getting stuck on the inside. So how do we think outside the box? Well, the first thing we need to do is accept that not all parameters or lines of the box are a bad thing. That may sound counterintuitive to what we're talking about, but too much freedom just becomes chaos, and it will hinder our creativity. Boundaries, or the box, gives us form and function, which gives our ideas depth and breadth. Our creativity must be anchored somewhere before we can set it free. So search for random inspiration. Inspiration from things outside our normal boxes. Read, watch, study, learn new and different things. Things totally unrelated to your work. When you permit your mind to look at different things, your perspective changes. And a change in perspective can be the trigger that allows our minds to take all the input we gather day after day, shake it up and pour it out in all sorts of different ways. Outside the box thinking allows us to reframe the problem and look at it from a different perspective, to engage in lateral thinking. Lateral thinking was a term first coined by Frederick de Bono in 1967. It means to think about problems in an indirect and creative way. Lateral thinking is, by definition, out-of-the-box thinking. So how do we foster our own out-of-the-box thinking? How do we find out if we're stuck in that box? Well, first, we should eliminate what might be keeping us in that box. Ask ourselves questions such as, do we have a negative attitude? Are we perfectionists? Do we see everything as black and white? Do we immediately make assumptions and stick to them? Do we too often jump to conclusions, and is our logic inflexible? If we answer these questions honestly and look for ways to overcome the attitudes and practices that are constraining us, we'll find ourselves climbing out of our self-imposed boxes and into a world of possibilities. As Henry Ford said, if you think you can do a thing, or you think you can't do a thing, you're right. All right, hey, I hope you found that useful. if you'd like to further discuss anything regarding this topic or any small business strategy, reach out to me at rich@speakingofsuccess.us. And before I forget, I'm excited to tell you that my new book, Build Your Rep, is now available in paperback and ebook through Amazon. Give it a read and let me know what you think. As I said, that's it for this week. I hope everybody stays well, and I will see you all next week. Take care. Bye.